Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and iTWire TV interview. Today I'm joined by Brad Rosairo. He is BitTitan's Director of Business Development in the Asia Pacific, based in Melbourne, Australia. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Now, I can see that BitTitan started in 2007 with the idea of making software for the cloud. And in fact, I remember first hearing the term SaaS, software as a service, back in 2000, and now 21 years ago. It's incredible to think. But BitTitan built their flagship migration cloud software called Migrating in 2009, which is obviously now over a decade ago. So BitTitan has grown into a global company. You've helped millions of users embrace the cloud. But for those who don't know about BitTitan, can you please tell us a bit more about it, a bit about Migrating, the cloud partners you work with, and what it is that you offer in 2021?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, once again, thanks again for having me on this on your program here. But we've been around just over a decade now, and the great thing about BitTitan is it was developed. One of our CEO was basically one of the head engineers of the Office 365 project many years ago with Microsoft. So he has the pedigree and of course the knowledge to work with our partner base that are all around the globe. So he started that way back 2009. We have about over 45 unique customers globally that use the actual tool itself. And we have over 22 million sort of end users as well. So it's been out there for quite a while. I think over 187 different countries that use us all across the globe. And the great thing is that the tool itself is quite easy to use. It's very user friendly, very intuitive, and that's I think what a lot of our partners seem to sort of use the actual solution itself. So. You might be aware of this, but we're a gold certified sort of partner with Microsoft as well, and also Google. So we work very closely in those two ecosystems, and so we try and do our best to get their migration experience, especially for our managed service partners, as smoothly as possible with our customer support service and more importantly in-country support as well. So but that's a little bit of a background about who we are.
Sure. And also when you were saying 45 customers, you meant 45,000 customers.
Sorry, 45,000 customers. Yeah. I'm sorry, I must have missed that.
That's okay, that's right. And so, I mean, the short version of Migrating is that it's allowing people to migrate from their legacy systems to the cloud or from cloud to cloud. I mean, what is Migrating exactly?
Yes, so Migrating can help clients that are on-prem to the cloud and then cloud to cloud. But we see a lot of our business is cloud to cloud stuff. And the reason is there's a lot of, which I'll touch on a bit later, but there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions that are happening globally, especially with the current climate that's happening around the world. So there's more migrations to mergers and acquisitions happening than anything that we've seen before. So it's a really, that's sort of in our wheelhouse anyway. We do the migrations for M&As very well. But clients, especially in Japan, I run all of APAC, and you get clients in Japan that are still in prem. They're back in sort of still in the big servers and sitting on these big sort of IT systems that are sort of still on premise. So, but they are having change right now as we speak. So there's a lot going on in the world, and it definitely will continue, not from for the next few years. I believe for another 10 years or so, even more. So.
Yeah, and you hear about cloud companies who are talking about hybrid cloud solutions. I mean, are you taking people completely to the cloud, or are you helping them with hybrid cloud? What are you doing in that space with all those different sort of solutions that are available in the market?
Yeah, no, we do both. So majority of them is moving to the cloud. That's the one that you can get a lot of efficiencies and cost saving. Is getting into the cloud, and we've got a hybrid sort of solution as well. The big one that we have is the Teams to Teams. That's the big one. I mean, I know we're using Zoom right now. We use Teams, and Teams is the highest used collaboration platform in the world right now. So if you're doing a migration for Office or anything to do with mail, why wouldn't you just bolt on doing your Teams as well? So Teams is the way to go. We use it, communicate it. We're sort of trying to get off email as much as possible. But Teams is great because you can sort of collaborate with documents and talk to one another as well. So,
yeah. Well, you've got sort of the clash of the titans with all the different cloud providers between Zoom and Teams. I mean, we use Teams as well, but a lot of people want to use Zoom, so we just use whichever one sort of seems to be the right at the time. But you're obviously helping, as you've been saying, a lot of companies move to drive this cloud revolution. And over the last decade, you've obviously seen a lot of activity happen, but the last year must have seen a huge accelerated shift to the cloud because of the lockdowns, people having to work from home. I mean, being based in Melbourne yourself, you would have been living through that 3 or 4 month lockdown. So, how did COVID-19 affect your company, and how do you think COVID-19 is going to shape 2021?
Yeah, it's a really, really valuable question, right, for everyone right now. I mean, 2020, yeah, wow, what a year it was. Now, knowing what we've known in the last 12 months of 2020, I'm so glad I'm working where I am, because a lot of organizations were putting the whole migration to the cloud on hold due to cost, due to time, and in general, in Australia, we are behind when it comes to migrating into the cloud anyway, compared to the rest of the world, right? So what it did, it accelerated our business in Australia, and more importantly, across APAC as well. So a lot of the institutions, like for example, universities or large enterprise corporations, and even mid-sized corporations said, hey, we're better off just doing it now. Like there was one large, I can't mention their name right now, but there was a large listed organization that used us for their migration. It's a big company on the stock exchange, right? They could only do it in COVID because it had downtime of their business. If they did it I suppose pre-COVID, they couldn't do it. So what happened is a lot of these projects came to the forefront because with the downtime, they could actually do the migration and get people, basically off-prem, or even more importantly, get them working at home and have that business continuity. Because if you're not in the cloud, you can't have people working at home. So what it did, it accelerated a lot of our business, and we had our best year ever as a company in 2020. Can you believe it?
Did you want to add anything else about the trends that are getting people to, further accelerate their move to cloud now that they've seen so much of how it has benefited them, and to the trends of going with BitTitan rather than your competitors?
Yeah, and when you say trends, what I have noticed personally is just the tools that we use, right? I mean, because I used to go into an office in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Now, do we need to go into the office? No, not really. So some of the trends is you only work 3 days in the city, and you got Monday to Friday as a long weekend.
Yeah.
So I think that trend's going to continue, because what it's shown organisations now, you can be more productive, working at home versus going to the city. Like I would waste 2 hours commuting.
Yeah.
Like by then, I've already done nearly 4 calls.
Yeah.
So I'm on average doing 7 to 8 calls per day. Over Teams. Yeah. Now, what I have noticed is they've gone from 1 hour chunks to 30-minute chunks. So I think that will continue. So even the way we organise our daily calendars will change based on COVID, and more importantly, being in a collaborative tool space like Teams or Zoom, right? So, and the most important one is my team has been so much more productive. Hence, probably why we've had such a great year in 2020.
Yeah.
We've really just impacted the bottom line. More importantly, we didn't travel anywhere. We saved cost on T&E. I still want to meet people and have a beer and maybe have some dinner with them. I think I missed the personal interaction.
Sure,
I think that will come back.
Yeah.
But in the sense of collaborative tools and things like that, these are here to stay. And I think the way that we work from 9 to 5 or Monday to Friday has changed completely, and probably will change forever.
Yeah. So, well, I think also that the whole aspect of online collaboration, which was sort of left out a bit when people were together because you were sort of collaborating together, I think that also has benefited tremendously, because I think we now know how to collaborate much more effectively together. It's not just 2 or 3 people editing a Word or a Google Docs document at the same time.
It's 5, 10, 20, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where we come into play. So because we're 100% SaaS based, right?
Yeah.
So someone might come to us, and this is an example, right? So someone might come to us on Monday and say, hey, we need to urgently migrate our 1,000 employees to the cloud so we can collaborate and use Teams, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, when do you want to do that? Well, we're going to do it on the weekend. Oh, okay, no problem at all. And we actually are so quick, we can do it over a weekend. So you can basically have everyone shut down on Friday night.
Yeah.
Basically have the IT team or your partner that's working with you use our tool do the migration over the weekend, probably even quicker, it might even be done on the day. And Monday morning, people come in, they don't know any difference, they're all in the cloud. And that's the unique thing about us, because we can do not just 500 or 1,000, we can do enterprise. We can go 50, 100,000, 300,000, 400,000 users over a few weekends without disrupting the actual business itself. So that's probably the thing that people do love about BitTitan, is that 100% SaaS based. Because in COVID, some of our competitors, you have to install or go on site to do a prem. Now with us, you don't need to do that. You can be remote. So I think that's some of the benefits, and more importantly, some of the advantages of using BitTitan. So.
Yeah. Now, also, when you talk to vendors, a lot of them are obviously very reliant on and work with a lot of managed service providers. So what do you do in that space?
Yeah, so we're a partner-driven organisation, Alex. So we can sell direct, but we prefer to go through our partner ecosystem. So we've got partners all around the country in Australia, of course, every state you can think of. We've got distribution channels as well. I can mention those names like Ingram and Dicker Data and there's sort of a couple to mention. So, but with our partners, we have a lot of partners that would actually use our services, because the difference with BitTitan is we don't compete with them for professional services. We're just a tool. So some competitors that are in our space do professional services and the tool. So they're competing with our partners and their own clients. So, but we don't do that. So we work together hand in hand. We give you the tool. They do the professional services. They do the prem to cloud or cloud to cloud, and the business is done. So that's why I think a lot of people like to sort of come to BitTitan, and why they're attracted to our business is we don't basically take business away from them. We help win business for them.
And look, I don't know if there's any customers you want to specifically mention, but because of whatever privacy that customers sometimes don't want to be mentioned. But are there any global success stories or local success stories that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I will mention one. I can't mention the end user, but NTT, a great sort of partner of ours here in Australia, in Sydney, and they did a fairly large migration with a company that's in Australia, which will be well documented in the news pretty soon. So they've done an excellent job with us across not just that account, but some other accounts. Around the world, of course, we partner up with Accenture. We also work very closely now with Dell here in APAC. So that's another big sort of brand. And of course, Avanade, which is another sort of offshoot of Accenture, which is their Microsoft sort of business that we sort of partner up very closely with, who I deal with someone in Canberra over in Accenture. So that's why I'm always talking to someone in Canberra there, Alex. You're part of the woods. And in America, we deal with a lot of the big brands, like a lot of the big sort of NASDAQ corporations, all the listed companies. I can't mention names because of the NDAs, things like that. But we definitely do work with big enterprise corporations.
Now, one of the big things we've heard over the past few years is various countries introducing heightened security measures for data protection. So what are some of the critical questions that every company should ask prior to a migration? Yeah,
that's a really good question again. Data migration, and security is paramount, isn't it, right? So is my data leaving the country?
Yeah, well, I mean, we hear about hack attacks every week. There's somebody new that's been some data breach. So this is a key question for companies, and that's why some of them go hybrid, because they want to keep some of their data on-prem and some of their data in the cloud, and it's just one of those non-stop things. So
I agree, and we work a lot of governments, so you get the protected environments as well. But the great thing is our servers are based. Actually, all the servers we use, of course, at the moment, Azure, and all the data centers are in Australia. So if you're doing a migration, the data centers are actually here, and you can pick those data sets. But if you are more like in the government space or defence, right, you might not trust that as well. You might want to have a private deployment. So we can do that and have the software and everything loaded on your servers locally and keep everything within that protected environment. There's a cost to that. Yes, we are 100% SaaS based, but we also can provide that if somebody wants that additional security, especially like the defence and the government. So they seem to prefer that. Working with companies like Accenture and that, they sort of prefer that as well. So the good news is you can have both. You can have a private deployment at a cost if you need that, or you can continue using our SaaS product, which uses the data centers within the country. So you'll be fine.
And is there anything else that you do to respond to those heightened security concerns?
I suppose we stick with all the normal, checklists of what we do per government in each country. So as I mentioned, I do handle APAC, and certain countries are very different when it comes to data privacy laws. So, but we do work very closely with those requirements of each country. I can't go into all of that.
Yeah.
But we definitely do work closely on a country by country basis.
So how did you get into the cloud? What's a bit about your own personal history in the world of tech?
Yeah, I suppose I have been in technology for a little while. So probably over probably 15, 20 years. So I just most recently, before joining BitTitan, I was running an AI company, so artificial intelligence out of New York. So I was the vice president of that company. And we dealt with a lot of the legal companies. So I became a lawyer as well, because we only sort of work with the top end law firms globally. We automated their expertise and put that in the artificial intelligence platform. So rather than go and see a lawyer, you can just go onto an app and get advice. So pretty crazy. So their bill by hours would be dropped, but that's what we had to try and do. Now with COVID, I think that's definitely taking off as well. So it was working with a lot of companies in the machine learning space, the natural language space. Of course, AI is a big, it's a big sort of space itself, but ran that for a few years. And and then of course, ended up catching up with G-Man, our CEO, and was really impressed with his energy, his enthusiasm. I caught up with him in Singapore. I was there for a conference, and through a mutual friend, he told me to have a catch up with him. We caught up and hit it off, and he was looking for someone to expand and grow his business in the APAC business, and that's what I've done for the last 20 years. And then prior to that, I was an MD of a publishing SaaS company called ProQuest. So every academic university would use ProQuest as journals, ebooks, and SaaS products. So I ran that. I grew that from a $200,000 business to a $135 million business with over 300 employees. So we did pretty well there, and had some experience as an MD and a VP, and now as a business development director, using all those skills to basically take this company to the sort of the next step and the next level. So
now, as you mentioned before, you were listed as a gold Microsoft partner and a Google Cloud partner, but I guess some people are also wondering why you've chosen those vendors and not also people like Amazon, Alibaba Cloud, or others.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of think, why aren't we doing? We work with all sort of vendors. Just that 80% of the world's market is on Microsoft, right? And probably just under 20%. We'll say we don't know the exact figures, but probably Google, and then the rest is everyone else. So we work with AWS. We work with Alibaba. We don't do much in China. It's a different sort of conversation to have on that one. But in the rest of the world, it's you're either on Google or you're on Microsoft. And when I worked at an AI company, they're all on Google. So a lot of startups start off with Google, but then what happens is when you grow and expand, you move to an ecosystem like Microsoft, because some of the organizations like the academics that I used to work with, the main engine that they run off is Excel spreadsheets or Excel. So many years ago, they moved to Google to save costs, but then they've actually moved back now to Microsoft products because of spreadsheets, collaboration tools, et cetera, because finance companies, what do they run off? They run off spreadsheets, don't they? Yeah. So that's where you see a bit of a swing coming back to a lot of the academics move back from Google to Microsoft Office products. So that's the reason why. So.
And are people able to use Migration Wiz to as seamlessly as possible move from Google Cloud to Microsoft Cloud?
100%. Yeah. So we do both. So you can go from Google Suite over to Office, and the other way around. You can go Office back to Google Suite, and we can do some G Suite stuff as well, G Vault. So we do a lot of Google stuff as well. So I think a lot of people think we're probably just Microsoft, but no, it's just because 80% of the business is coming from Microsoft. So a lot of your sort of focus goes towards that. But saying that, in Japan, there's a lot of Google business, which we're one. So we're doing pretty well in Japan too.
And obviously, it depends. Every company is different. The amount of data they have is different. The level of depth of how deeply they use each cloud service is different. But is there kind of like a benchmark for how long it takes for a successful migration to take place from one cloud to another? And is there any sort of benchmark for how long it takes to solve any issues or problems with data not, migrating to the right spot and having to be remediated or fixed up afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer the first question. One thing great about migration, you won't have problems with the data, right? So the data won't be lost or anything because it's purely, with simple terms, it's copying all that data, and you don't press delete until the end user or the client says yes, right? Yeah. So you're never going to lose your data. So that's great, right? In reference to the projects, it just depends, Alex. Like, depending if you're doing mid-sized jobs like 1,000 to say 5,000, I mean, they're quite quick, right? Then you got the bigger jobs. You got to stage those 40, 50, 100, 200,000 jobs, right? When I say jobs, users or licenses. So they're big transactions. So you have to have a good partner to work with, and our partners will advise you on how to do that. So rather than do a big bang approach and just do the whole 100,000, they'll probably advise you to pre-stage it, and that's what we recommend as well, because you do come across what's called a throttling issue. So you got to make sure you can manage that, and that's the thing that holds things up. That's not us. That's more the Microsoft and Google, right? So because they don't want, they're trying to control that traffic and those pipes. So you're going to make sure that that side of it's okay, and that's why I think the pre-staging is probably the way to go when you work with our partners. So,
Well, as they say, you eat the elephant one mouthful at a time.
Yeah, I mean, you can do, like I said, you can probably do things over 2 weekends, right? Yeah. I mean, we did a 30,000 seat project over a weekend. Wow, that's incredible. 30,000 employees. Wow. So yeah, you can do that over a weekend, but just depends what you prefer. Some customers don't like that. They want to do it in stages, and they'll work with our partners to make sure that they feel comfortable. That's the thing. As long as they're comfortable with those pre-stages or those migration. And the great thing is, Alex, we have the support around the clock to support them. It's part of our service. So you don't pay for additional support. You buy a license, you get the 24/7, you get the customer service, you get a technical specialist as well. So if you're doing a migration over the weekend, our guys are on call. They're going to help you. So if you have a problem with a button, or just say the migration is stalling or something's going on, our guys are there to help you. Now, will it be a BitTitan problem? We won't be 100% sure. It might be a throttling or it might be something else. But our team is there to help and assist.
Yeah. And I guess sometimes with the migrations, some of the internal staff need to be retrained to use a different environment, even though, things like Google Docs and Word are pretty similar. There still must be some of those issues too, which necessitate a company chunking things down into separate phases of a project. Yeah, and
I think you mentioned a good word there, chunking down. You got to chunk it down, because there are different elements of those projects, right? So, I mean, yes, you've got the Microsoft piece, which is you got the Microsoft Mail, but then you've got maybe documents, and then you've also got Teams. There's all different chunks. So, I mean, doing a Teams project is a big job, with all the different channels and all the chatter and the private chats and collaboration, and there's a lot going on. It's pretty complex, right? But we make it as easy as possible because you just use the tool and it's done. But it is a complex system to migrate. So.
Yeah. Now, last year we saw all the conferences go online, so and we might see hybrid events this year more than ever, where there's some in-person stuff, but also an online component, because who's ever going to want to not be online anymore? But when's the next BitTitan conference, or what sort of roadshows might you be having this year?
Actually, we've got our global sort of sales meeting next week. It's all virtual, so I'm doing it from 2:00 to 5:00 in the morning. Melbourne time. Wow. So, but because it's in Seattle, our head office, so some majority of the people are over there. So that's our first sort of virtual get together. It's sort of conference internally, which is great. So this time last year, I was over in the US, like a year ago. Look what's happened, right? Yeah. So we've got a virtual conference. The one that I really do miss is the Microsoft event in July. So just attending that's got cancelled again. That's in Vegas, and unfortunately, that will be missed again. The Ignite conferences, of course, I think at this stage are still virtual. So I would imagine, I would like to be going to some conferences in the next, say, 3 to 6 months, just to be safe, right? Yeah. I think in Australia, we'll be okay traveling. I might be able to go to Sydney for some conferences, maybe in the next 3 months, But internationally, Alex, not sure at this stage where I'll be travelling to.
Well, the government says not until 2022, unless it's for absolutely important, national security or national business. Then it's all going to be virtual. Now, as we get to the end of the interview, I always have 3 questions that I like to finish on. And the first one is simply about, the future. I mean, before this year, I talked about 2030 because it was a good 10-year time frame, and now it's 2021. I mean, I suppose I can start talking about 2031, but still, over the next sort of decade or so, how do you think the cloud is going to evolve? I mean, as I mentioned before, I first heard the term SaaS, software as a service, in the year 2000 when it was all brand new, and now, of course, it's all, we take it all for granted. It's so advanced, but clearly, it's by 2030. I mean, it's I don't know. We'll have space stations with data centers.
Yeah, I mean, who's to know? I mean, in a sense of planning, like I plan my business as well, like and working on the business plan. I mean, 10 years is a long time, right? In technology. I mean, I'll be fair to say a lot will change even in 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say what's going to happen in 10 years, but I mean, cloud's going to be around without a doubt, right? Because cost is going to drive things. So you're going to see data centers getting smaller, cost of having data in the cloud is going to be cheaper. Companies are going to be more efficient. They're going to save bottom line. It's all about bottom line, right? Return on investment if they do move to the cloud. So I think that's also going to drive it. There's going to be a hell of a lot more mergers and acquisitions, without a doubt. Even in the next 3 years, you're going to see a lot of mergers coming out of APAC. Because with COVID, unfortunately, people have lost their businesses and lost their jobs. But what it's also done is created opportunity for other large organisations, even mid-sized organisations, to acquire businesses, right? So just even in our space, there's been a lot of acquisitions happening, and that will continue, I think, in the migration space. So I even think our value as migration company, even BitTitan, will be our term sheets and sort of value will be going up as well, because there is going to be a lot of a need for migration companies. And I think I mentioned earlier in the call, like, and most of the business is cloud to cloud anyway. Yeah. Because a lot of people think, if there's no more Prem-led, what are you going to do? No, but there's so many mergers. Like we have a mergers and acquisitions team that just look at mergers and acquisitions. Like I've got a spreadsheet of mergers I received last month. There was well over 250 mergers and acquisitions just in a small part of the world. So I think there's going to be a lot of that going on. So that means they're going to need us in the sense of SaaS and software as a service and vendor as a service and all these fancy sort of acronyms that are happening. Yeah. I think that will continue. I think I'm not sure what it'll be in 10 years. I'd love to know what that'll be. Yeah. But I think there'll be a lot coming from an AI background, Alex. There's going to be a lot more AI stuff, automation, definitely. And with the internet getting faster and quicker, not just in Australia but across the globe, you're going to see a lot more applications that are more that require more bandwidth that will be able to run more efficiently as well. So I think the speed is definitely going to help things down the track. We've got 5G now. It'll probably be 8G by then, or maybe 10G by then. So
well, supposedly it's only going to be 6G by then, but even so, I mean, I always like to joke that we won't get teleportation until 7 or 8G.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever the G is, I mean, it's 5G right now. I don't know what it'll be.
So my second last question is to ask, a bit about yourself. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received in life to help you get where you are today?
Yeah, that's a pretty cool question. And I have been asked that just from friends, just with my career, where I've come from. I think many, many years ago, so when I was probably close to 20, can't tell you my age, but I was close to probably 27. Yeah. Maybe a little bit earlier, I bumped into a guy that I ended up working for his company. He was a CEO, and he said, "You know what you should do, Brad? You should, before the age of, say, 38 years old, maybe 35, around that age, try and learn as many different types of industries as possible. So go into banking, go into insurance, go into information, go into software. Do as many as you can, because what it's going to do is make you more rounded later on in your career." And I said, okay. So that's what I did. I was a banker. I was in the information game. I worked at IBM.
You became a lawyer.
I worked in law firms. I sold AS400s. I basically worked in education and artificial intelligence. Basically used all that skill set to be running businesses and growing businesses. And that's one of my skill sets is to grow businesses, not just with revenue, but with people too, So, because people are the most important, is how to lead and be a good leader with the people that you lead. So that was probably the best bit of advice I got, was rather than stick in a company for 40 years or 20 years and just be stuck in that, I became more employable. But even now with cloud, I've just extended my career for another 20 years because I've got AI and cloud, so I can go for another 20. So yeah, it was a pretty good little bit of advice, and it's paid off.
Yeah, well, diversify, and you can sort of be a jack of all trades, and then you can try to master one later in your career, and that's what you're doing.
Exactly. And sales became one of those ones that was across all those industries, right? And sort of mastered that really well. And the business development side, yes, I've had the MD experience, which is great, running the P&L and all that stuff that goes with the MD. But the sales and the business development and building markets, emerging markets, is fun. I enjoy that. It's a lot of fun, actually. It really is.
So what's your final message for iTWire viewers and readers, and for your current and future customers and partners?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, thanks for listening to me, to everyone out there. I mean, I really appreciate that, even your time as well, Alex. That's
thanks for being here.
Very grateful. So thank you for that. Yeah, I suppose what I would say, a bit of business advice, but more importantly, a bit of personal advice. Just treat each day as it is. Don't get stuck in your ways. Learn new skills. Learn new things technology-wise, because it's definitely going to help you, not just in your own business life, but in your personal life, right? And on a business side, I mean, when it comes to migration or moving to the cloud or cloud to cloud or prem to cloud, just think about BitTitan. Have a chat to either myself or one of my team members, or contact us on our website. We're happy to help you and talk to you, because our advice is free. We can help you, give you some good advice of how to do migration, if it's cloud to cloud or prem to cloud. But yeah, if that is in your wheelhouse, have a think about us. And but more importantly, keep learning. If you're not learning, you should try something else.
Well, Brad, thank you very much for your time. I hope we can talk again, and best of luck for the future.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.